Episode 88, A Fork in the Road. Welcome back to One Extraordinary Marriage, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. You're here with Alisa DiLorenzo.
And Tony DiLorenzo.
Welcome back. You know, this is probably the first time in a few weeks that we're not going to say we have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Right.
We went to dinner with some friends that we became friends with over the summer during our summer small group, and we were talking to them and talking about how last week's podcast kind of started off with we don't know what we're going to talk about. And one of the guys who listens to us and has been ever since he started with the small group was like, didn't you guys say that a couple weeks ago too? And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're not starting there because we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
We do.
And it goes back to last Tuesday when we posted. Actually, it goes back to last Sunday night when we recorded that podcast. And many of you commented on the fact that you could tell that we were not in a good place.
Right.
We had some of you comment on the fact that it showed you what a spiritually disconnected couple sounds like, right, and made you aware of that in your marriage. Some of you commented on Tony's reactions to me, and I did address that on Facebook, that I was not upset by his reaction. I was not put off by his reaction. You guys have been very good at calling him to count when he's overstepped his boundaries or been off base in the past. And I really do feel the need at the start of the show to say he didn't upset me with his reaction. And I just want everyone to know that. Had he, I think I would have been a little more vocal about it. I would have said something, because that's just kind of where we've gotten. But I totally floored him by my reaction on the devotion. And had the tables been turned, I probably would have been like, where's this coming from?
Right.
I would have had the same reaction. So I can't fault him for having just a normal human reaction to, I thought we were going down this path, and now you're telling me you don't like it at all. Right.
And to Alisa's benefit, as soon as that came out and we were talking about that more, she went out and sought after some devotions that would work for her. And I thank you guys who posted on oneextraordinarymarriage.com and commented there and let us know what you are doing, because that gave us ideas. Alisa, for herself, she found something that looks to work well for her. I checked it out and I was like, oh, wow, this would work. And one of the things is the timing for us is big. When do we do it? And last night we got back to it. We did it before bed. It was a real quick read, and it worked very well. Our plan is, though, to do it during the week. Alisa and I have a lot of time during the day because of how our businesses are set up, and now the kids are back in school, that we do talk to each other probably 3-4 times a day. And some of those could be for as much as, 10-15 minutes, So our goal is to just, instead of just blabbing away about things that, yes, they're important, but our spiritual life and our devotion together is much more important, that we just slot that in there and make it work for us.
Well, and the nice thing with this one, there's a website called crosswalk.com, and I actually follow another devotional that they do. It's called Girlfriends and God, and it's a women's devotional. But they have a married couples devotional called Moments with You, with Dennis and Barbara Rainey. And, I was telling Tony when I said, well, let's check this out, is, we can both be subscribed to this devotional. We can get in our inbox if we have, if we say, okay, today's the day, hey, do you have time to just take a look at this one? There was actually one earlier I think it was yesterday, that was called A Fork in the Road.
I think it was
yesterday. And it really tied in with where our week has gone. So as an aside, we have picked this up. They're very short vignettes, stories, devotionals. And there are, 1 or 2 questions at the end. Just enough where we are right now for us to be saying, okay, you know what, let's talk about that. Where did we see this particular issue, example, etc., in our own marriage? And so that was, I thank Tony for being open to just trying this one out for, try it out for a while. There's nothing that says we have to stick to this for the next, year or, however long. I think the thing that came out of that is that nothing is set in stone.
Right.
If it works for a while and then it's not working for us, okay, well then it's time to find something new.
And move forward and know when whatever it might be has languished or died out and go to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And that really kind of ties into the fork in the road that we're talking about. You guys have heard us talk on and off for probably the last 2 or 3 months that we've just trying to figure out what the direction of One Extraordinary Marriage is going to be. You've heard Tony mention maybe changing the format. We've, shortened it up because we heard from you guys that you really like that 45 minutes
or less.
But we've also been trying to figure out how this works into our lives. And went walking with a girlfriend last Thursday because we've been wrestling with some decisions that we're making in regard to the show. And she really kind of set me straight.
Well, I think we need to back up though too, because on Tuesday afternoon, I had called Alisa just frustrated with the way things were going. And, the first thing that was out of my mouth is I think it's time to stop the podcast. I think I'm done at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it took Alisa by surprise.
Okay, that would be where I was silent and said, "Oh," and he's like, "What are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, I'm really in kind of a state of shock."
Right, and a lot of my frustration has come from us not being able to give you some really good shows here as of recent. We're coming to the mics a little underprepared. I feel, just overwhelmed at times. One of my things is when we got behind these mics, a lot of the stuff we talked about for many, many months and months were a lot of sexual intimacy, recreational intimacy, emotional intimacy. Things were good. And we're just in a period of life where it's not that things are horrible. It's not like everything's coming apart, but there's a lot going on. And because of a lot stuff going on, we're pulled in many directions, and our marriage is pulled in many directions, be it kids are growing up, activities that we're doing, businesses that we're trying to get moving off the ground, current businesses that are still paying for our overhead, for everything that weighs. And this, to me, gets frustrating because I believe we have an amazing book out there. I believe that we give so much, and sometimes I don't see anything in return. And I will say it honestly, that is in a monetized state of return. I'm a businessman. I have been for many years. And for me, sometimes seeing things and people valuing them means that there is a monetary return. And so that, when I was talking to Alisa on Tuesday, that's where my frustration comes from. Mm-hmm. And so, you know what? I was ready to pull the plug. I got an email from a good buddy of ours who's listened to this many a times, and I know he's going to be a little shocked because he wrote me a fantastic email, and thank you so much, Ron, for that. But I didn't even read the whole thing, and the email back to him was basically, thank you very much for that email. I have not read it. The show will be ending next week. And from him was a, wow, I'm shocked, and went into, I read it a little bit more. And from there, we've vasculated back and forth. And sorry, I got a hair in my mouth somehow. We've had a lot of good people come up beside us, and we've been praying a lot, going, God, what is this? And for me, sometimes it's, God, why am I doing this? Why do I do this every week? What returns are there? Again, I am a businessman. I have been for years. I am an entrepreneur. I look at things and I want to monetize them. I want to make money from them. That is part of who I am. I believe, though, that what we do here is a ministry, but I also believe that ministries need to be taken care of.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient, yes. Because if not, those ministries will go bye-bye, like we have seen many of them go bye-bye over the years. So that's where I came from, and that is where I'm coming from. Again, thankfully, we have a week before we podcast, and I'm glad we did, because we got a number of really amazing comments that were only from God, I believe. You know, a number of new listeners who have come across us and are just completely blessed by what we do here each and every week, and I'm sure they're listening here today and probably going back and listening to all the other stuff we've done. So thank you. You brightened my week. We had some folks, though, and one of them was Alisa's very good friend, Jan, who stopped her in her tracks, and I'll let her take it from there.
Well, I have to back up and say that when Tony called me on Tuesday, yes, I was shocked, but my reaction to him was one of, there was a sense of calm about, like, once I got over the initial, okay, if this is where he's coming from, this is where he's coming from, and if his heart's not going to be in it, then I can't do one without him. It doesn't work. I need somebody to have a conversation with, and you guys all know he does all the technical side. So without him, there is no technical side, which means there's no podcast.
You could learn.
I could learn. It would not be a desire of my heart to do so. So that would not happen.
It would take you away from your Facebook time.
Amongst other things.
Yes.
Anyway, that's not where we're going with this. We've already had the Alisa Spends Too Much Time on Facebook podcast.
Yes.
Okay. I was going with my reaction to you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So what I told him, you know, because he started telling me that he could hear my disappointment. And I said, you know what, honey, the important thing for me is that it will be easier for me to get over the disappointment of not having, you know, if we decide to end this, of not having this in our lives, than it will be for you to get over the resentment of doing something that you don't want to be doing. And when I was able to verbalize that to Tony, it was really an eye-opening moment for myself to say, you know what? Yes, I mean, this podcast has been a big part of our lives for almost 2 years now, but I didn't want my husband getting to a situation where he was resentful. There was building anger, frustration, all of these things. I was like, you know what? I can deal with my disappointment. I can deal with having that portion of our lives change into something else. But I don't want an angry husband. And I wasn't willing to dig my feet in to say, we are still doing this. I had to get over yourself. That wasn't going to happen. Doesn't work very well in our marriage. So Thursday morning, Jan and I are out for a walk, and I'm just kind of, you know, we're huffing it around Lake Poway up and down hills, and, you know, half out of breath. I'm saying, well, you know, it looks like Tony and I are going to end the podcast. And, you know, so I'm kind of filling her in on some of the back, what's been going on over the last couple of months and where we've been. And she just said, well, are you guys making this decision yourselves, or, you know, have you actually, you know, talked to God about it? And I was like, ooh, I don't know. I haven't talked to God about it. Tony said he wanted to stop. I'm honoring my husband. He wants to stop. We're going to stop. And she's like, but what if there's something more that you're supposed to be doing with this podcast? What if this is just a hiccup? What if this is just an obstacle in the road that you have to go through and move around and get through, and, you know, you have to push through this? And I was like, oh, okay, apparently we were supposed to walk today. One of those things that was already scheduled, obviously for a reason. And, you know, God's put all of these different situations in our lives this week. So that was Thursday. Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday, I talked to another girlfriend who's like, really? Now? Why now? why not, 6 months ago, why not, and so it was all this questioning, like, what's going on right at this very moment? Are you sure this is the right time to end the show? Or are you guys just having, a couple bad weeks? Then Friday night we got to dinner with our friends, and, one of our...
Who we love dearly. And
they're amazing.
I want to just thank that small group that we had this summer again, because really the friendships that have come out of that have just been so wonderful. I mean, really just amazing to just sit down with a couple of them, two of the couples on Friday night, and just talk and laugh. And we had the opportunity to just ask for prayer over this podcast, because they do listen. They've seen the impact that Stripped Down, our book, has had in their own marriages. They have seen it as we went through 7 weeks of a small group with them. Heck, one of them called us crazy in our small group, but that's what it's about.
Actually, both the couples that we had dinner with probably would have left after the first week if they hadn't been just a tad curious about where we were going to go with this.
Yes. One of them said she was completely shocked and was about to run out, but didn't. And then
the other one told us we were crazy just
in.
About every week.
Yeah.
She's
but
like,
6 weeks in, she was
you.
pretty blunt about it, which was awesome. I love it. And I can totally appreciate the honesty that comes from our groups, because we are so transparent and we are so open that the friendships that we have with them we don't have to wear masks, and they don't either. They know that they can tell us anything and we're not going to be shocked, stunned, mystified, upset. I mean, we're there to listen and love on them. And Friday night was our chance to let them love on us a bit, because even though we were having a good time, we really wanted to talk to them about this. And just awesome. I mean, just awesome to be able to sit with them in that way.
And, one of the women said, well, the first thing I'm going to say is give yourself permission to quit.
Right.
If it is the time, give yourself permission. Know that you've done what you needed to do and give yourself permission to move on. She said, but before you quit, think about where you're going to be in 6 months. If you keep going, with the podcast, or if you don't, what does that look like? And what do you think of that picture? So that was Friday night. Then Sunday, did we go to church?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. Okay. I'm a little thrown off because today is Labor Day, and so I'm trying to figure out what day I'm on.
Yes.
So Sunday
Happy Labor Day to all of you.
Happy Labor Day.
And we see it differently, as if you've been on the Facebook fan page. This is for moms who have labored, and also for all of you moms, dads, husbands, and wives who've labored to make your marriage a priority. This is for you guys too. So Sunday, we go to church. We've been doing this series on Jonah and Grace. And the woman leading worship, we've had a guest worship leader for the last couple of weeks, and it's been Mary James. And so she gets up and she starts talking. She's been in ministry for 12 years. And so she gets up there and she starts talking about, those seasons where she just hasn't wanted to. Yeah. Where you just bad days, bad weeks. And she has to get up and sing. She has to get up and she has to sing, and she has to, worship and lead worship. And how there have just been times when she's like, God, I don't want to. And God's like, well, that's great. This is what you're doing today. Mm-hmm. I've given you this gift. It might not feel like you want to do it, but I need you out there. I need you out there so you can bless them. And so I'm sitting there listening to her, and Tony and I are starting that little, you guys know when you're in church and you think the message is just for you, and you start elbowing your spouse like, maybe we really need to pay attention to this message. And so we're having kind of that back and forth thing. And so the whole message is just about grace and unconditional love, and just, trying to figure out this path, where Jonah screwed up so many times, and God's just like, no, I want you to do this. No, I want you to do this. And so all of that being said, God has given us all of these opportunities since Tuesday afternoon when Tony said, we're done. When Tony called me on Tuesday afternoon, what we're recording right now is going to be the final episode. And so I will say right now, this is not the final episode. We, as our friends told us on Friday night, we talked about the fact that we are so transparent, and
with that comes the fact that we put ourselves out on the line every week. You guys, and not that we want you to stop, but you guys have the ability to pick apart our lives. You have the ability to criticize and encourage, and that comes with how we've chosen to do this show.
Right. And the reason we've done this is because we truly believe that there isn't enough of it out there. There just isn't. And all of those wonderful people who are touting about marriage and how wonderful it is every day of the week, every month of the year, I just cannot jump on their bandwagon. And we decided long ago that this show wasn't about that. This was about real marriages, real people going through good times, you know, attempting sex for 60 days straight, attempting sex for 7 days straight, for, you know, attempting to talk to each other for 15 minutes, you know, opening up, taking off the mask. Also the bad times, loss of a child, pornography, addictions, you know, the gamut of stuff, the feelings getting hurt, rejected in the bedroom, rejected outside the bedroom, arguments between, you know, what you're eating or the kids not going to bed correctly. That's what this is. And some days it's pretty and it's awesome and it's, you know, you're on a high. But I know from going through this part of our lives that's called marriage, that's going to be a part of our lives for many years to come, it's not always easy. Mm-hmm. It takes work, it takes time, and even though we have been at it for many years and teaching people and leading small groups, we still stumble and we still fall and we still stub our toes. And you know what? The reason we share all of that with you is so that when you're in your home and the whole dang place is exploding with anger and tears from you, kids, and everybody else, is so you know you're not alone. You're not. You know, there are other people out here. There's us that stumble all the time. We screw up all the time. You know? But there's one thing that I do know is that Jesus loves us. And every time I yell at Abby or Alisa or get upset, I got to reel myself in and realize the mistakes, realize the sins I've made, and know that I'm loved. And sometimes for some of you, that may not even be there. But to tell you, honestly, we love you. Mm-hmm. We know the crap that might be building up. We may not know every single little detail because, you know, all of our lives are different. We're each so extraordinarily unique. God has made us that way. But I know the fears. I know pain. Alisa and I know hurt and hurting each other. You know, we've been there. And so, gosh, where am I going? I don't know at this point.
Well, I think it's just we're at a place where we are taking a serious look at this show and how it fits into our lives and, you know, seeking out God's will for it, for us. I'm not sure what's going to be happening in the future. One of the things that was made very clear to me as I was talking to my girlfriend, again, huffing and puffing, is that we've chosen to be transparent with you guys. And it's important that as we're kind of weighing out, do we keep doing this? Do we not? That we keep you informed. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the future holds right now for this podcast. I do know that you do matter very much to us. That's part of the reason why it's a good thing we don't podcast on Wednesdays. And that we had the gift of a week to process and talk through and just kind of get our bearings again. Because, we wrote about it in the book that sometimes you just have to say no. Sometimes you get overburdened and overcommitted. Mm-hmm. And, for us, we're kind of looking at everything right now saying, what are we doing? How are we using our time? What activities make sense? What don't? But for right now, we are continuing the podcast. So that's why, if you had asked me what the title of the show was going to be on Tuesday, it was, It Is Good.
It is good.
It is good. As God said after, creating the world, it is good. But just know that we will not lose our transparency with you, regardless of what happens and how we are processing what the future of this show is. It's not always easy to be so transparent. We saw this great little play this past weekend at church dealing with masks. And, again, one more thing that
we
tied into all of this conversation. But we're not going to start hiding what's going on from you guys just because we're going through a rocky patch and we're trying to figure out what's going on with the show.
Right.
Your input has been immensely valuable over the last 87 episodes.
Oh, and even with the listener feedback survey.
Yeah, just all throughout what we've done, we know you guys are here. And, I know Tony talked earlier in the show about the monetary side of things. And that is very, it's not like that's the only thing that drives Tony, but that is a factor. We kind of need to make sure that we're paying for the web hosting and, all
the little stuff.
Have.
It's not like we run this huge operation here.
Yeah. One is not, it's not a multi-million-dollar corporation and we're trying to figure out how to keep the lights on, but there are little expenses. And that's why, even a few weeks ago, we had put up is it a widget? What do you call that thing on the page?
For the
donation?
Monthly donation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Monthly contribution. We won't call it donation because there's no tax.
Contribution. We had just done that. And, we even started that at $3 a month. So it's $36 a year. But those are the little things that, if you can, and we're well aware of what's going on economically around the world. But if you can spare $3 a month and you see a value in what's being done here, it would be appreciated. Because that does allow us not to have to constantly dip into our own funds to do this. And we're not looking to make this huge moneymaker. But again, it's like Tony talked about earlier, if a ministry can be self-sufficient, it makes it a lot easier for it to keep going on.
Right.
Because you get to a point when it's not self-sufficient where you have to make a decision, okay, how much can we afford besides the gift of our time? What other resources, how much can we afford of those other resources, financial resources to put in? Mm-hmm. And that's, quite honestly, that is part of the evaluation process that we're going through right now. And we have to weigh all of these factors. We know we've touched many of you. You've let us know that. And we're so appreciative. And those comments, those emails are heavily weighted in our hearts as far as what we're trying to figure out here. But we're just looking at the whole snapshot of our lives right now. What does it look like in the DiLorenzo household with a couple of businesses, a podcast, 2 kids, a husband, a wife, and other stuff,
adventures on the horizon?
Yeah. So thank you for listening tonight, today, whenever you are tuning into us. Those of you that we had already told that we were ending the show, sometimes we get a little emotional and have some knee-jerk reactions. So
it's the Italian in me.
Yes. I won't dispute that.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com. This is episode 88. Leave your feedback there. Let us know. That's the best place to let us know and let everybody else know as well what you're thinking. Where have we impacted your life, your marriage? That would be cool to read, to see. And on that note, I mean, we are going to be here next week, and we'll probably be here the week after that. As we continue through this, we'd ask for all your prayers. Yvette up there, I love you, hon. You are just the prayer warrior, and I know you are constantly praying for us. So thank you so much for yours. I do think of you often because you are the prayer warrior here. So thank you so much, you guys. Have yourself a wonderful week. We will catch you next week. We look forward to hearing your comments, what you think, and we'll take it from there. Love you guys.